Welcome to BALLBUSTERS Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe and hit the bell notification icon to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you'd like to support this channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. If you'd like to join the community debate, go to nathanoakley.com and check out the Flat Earth Debate Forum. Joining me on BALLBUSTERS this evening, we have the Adam Meakin, Betty Van Velsen, Paula, otherwise known as Bible Literalist, and Quantum Eraser. Very good to have you all.
Thank you. Good to be here.
Good evening, everybody.
Evening, everyone.
Ahoy, hoy.
Hello, hello. We may be joined by Anthony Riley later. We'll see if luck has it. He'll get his post briefing rather than a pre-briefing, but there we go. We'll see. Hopefully we'll get Anthony along a bit later. So it's been quite an interesting week, especially for those who believe in gravity, as Georgie fucking Musser has been on Fight the Flat Earth channel discussing the non-force that is gravity. So I think we're going to be addressing him second, but there's also another pretender clown who's been in our midst for quite a considerable amount of time, named George Netanyuk, who we're also going to be covering tonight in terms of some of his nonsense and escapades over on Jose J.G. Gonzalez's debate channel. So where do you want to begin, John? What should we kick off with?
Well, it was interesting because I was doing just a walkthrough last night of George Musser's presentation or the video on Fat to Fat Earth. And I was going through it with a fine-tooth comb. I wanted to get the times down on the things that we were going to talk about. And I noticed, I think it was at 1411. I don't think I wrote it down here. But at 1411, I noticed a clip out. It was like an edited chop of the interview. And I was wondering, because I didn't see anyone else say anything. Of course, I wasn't following any conversations on Skype. But I said, damn, there's a chop out. You could see where it was chopped. His answer, the question was stated, then the answer was chopped. And you could see it on George Musser's side. And I looked over at Fat to Fat Earth, and you could tell his head tilted real quick. So, and then I went back into Skype, and it looks like other people have found the same exact thing.
Is that the bit, John, after he says gravity's not a force for the first time?
Yes.
Yeah, I noticed that chop as well. It's in the clip that I posted up in the middle of that clip, and it is kind of noticeable.
Well, when Anthony pointed it out to me, from memory, he'd already discussed it with Craig, and Craig had denied that that it has been edited. So that was denied by Craig. As far as I'm concerned, that was from Anthony. So hopefully Anthony will join us and fill us in if that's the case.
I mean, it's not a big deal, right? However, if you deny it, then it's a big deal because it's obviously chopped. Anyone that knows anything about video editing knows that it's chopped. Anyone can notice it. It's not a big deal. You chop the video, so what? And by the way, we don't need that to absolutely pulverize YouTube bozos, by the way, just to let you know.
Okay, so we're going to be showing a few snippets from one is actually from that interview that we were just discussing with Fight the Flat Earth, and the other will be from Jose's channel. So should we start with the first clip, John? Are you ready for that?
Yeah, go ahead. Well, hold on a second. Let's have a brief introduction. Go ahead and you could share my screen. Tell me when it's up.
You're on.
So what we're talking about here, we're going to start off with George Knucklehead. You remember this guy, right? He's the Pontiff Maximus of Retardia. But we toe tagged him back in the 330 range. And also remember, he's the scumbag that tried to get Brian Mullen fired. Same guy. But now he's teaching over at Jose Gonzalez. I can't find my ass or a pipe wrench because he doesn't know the difference. He's teaching these clowns now, this guy. So we're going to start off with him. We're going to take it real slow, and we're just going to see where his competence lies. Right? So go ahead and play. Start at 23:35 and stop at 24:43, please.
In there that the link will be shared in a little bit. We'll finish so George do his presentation. I want to see this. I want to see what's going to go down here.
Okay, here we have the profile of the Earth. Here's the surface of the Earth here. And we have the center of the Earth. Again, we're dealing with a spherical Earth model. So every point from the center of the Earth to the surface of the Earth is a distance RE, radius of the Earth. That's what we call the radius of the Earth, the distance from the center to the surface. So at any point on the surface is the same radial distance from the center to the surface. Now, that's how elevations are measured. Elevations are all the same distance from the center of the Earth. If you
Okay, do you want your screen back on, John?
Please.
Okay, you're back on.
So, did you all hear what he said? Right? What he's having a problem with is what we were talking about with Soundly's video and the Lake Pontchartrain choo-choo train bridge. All these guys are stepping and fetching with this, right? So George says elevations are all the same distance from the center of the Earth. However, Wikipedia, their alma mater, plainly says elevation is not to be confused with the distance from the center of the Earth. I mean, this is just cut and dry. Everyone knows this, so I don't know where he's getting this from. He's just making shit up, right? Just pontificating from nothing. So, and number two, it's a begging the question fallacy. Prove where the center of the Earth is, Crayon Muncher. Right? So you can have all the diagrams that you want. You're screwed right here. In fact, I can stop this whole presentation because you're a Crayon Muncher. You don't know what you're talking about, but we won't. Where's the fun in that? Go ahead and play from 26:54 and stop at 27:27, please.
And then we just subtract off the radial distance from the base of the mountain to the center of the Earth, and that difference is what we call the elevation. Our height 2 or R2 is greater than H1 because it's at a higher elevation. Now, all points at the same elevation on a spherical Earth are all the same distance away from the center of the Earth. This is what we call level. All level points on the surface of the Earth are at the same elevation and equal distance from the center of the Earth.
Okay, you back up?
Yeah, right. So you hear what he's trying to say. See, these guys, they think level is curved. So just a level curve. Did you hear what he said? Here we go again. All points at the same elevation on a spherical Earth are all the same distance away from the center of the Earth. This is what we call level. Well, that's not how level's defined. So number one, begging the question fallacy times 2, spherical Earth in the center of the Earth. You have to prove these first before you can appeal to them. Duh. And we're back to this again from their alma mater wiki. Simply, elevation is not to be confused with the distance from the center of the Earth. So all your diatribe right here and your little friggin' crayon diagrams, I'm surprised you could even make them without munching on the crayons. They're hogwash. It's bollocks. And level. Let's go over this. Level from Merriam-Webster. To make a line or surface horizontal. Make flat or level. Level synonyms: flat, even, flush, plane. Level, flat, plane, even, smooth means having a surface without bends or curves or irregularities. From dictionary.com. Level, having no part higher than another, having a flat or even surface. Level, being in a plane parallel to the plane of the horizon. Horizontal. Level, to make a surface level, even or flat. Here's some more. From Cambridge, level of a surface, not rising or falling or higher on one side, but even in all directions, horizontal or flat. Level, something that is level with something else is at the same height, the same elevation. Level, to make a surface flat. So this is pretty clear. What's next? Do we need to define and or the for you? All right, play 27:27. Stop 28:15, please.
Now, if we look at the Pontchartrain Bridge, here we have the bridge on the surface of the Earth. Here are the pylons that Quantum Eraser was talking about. We have the south of the end of the bridge at point A. We have the north end of the bridge at point B. The pylons he measured to be about the same distance. One was 4-foot elevation, which means the top of the pylon to the surface of the water was 4 feet. And the other one, the top of the pylon to the surface of the water was 3 feet. And he said,
Okay, you're back on.
Right. So he said the pylons he measured that I measured. I mean, what? No, he didn't even watch the 30 times that I presented it. What did I say each and every time when I was showing my mouse hovering over the shoreline, right? So this is a clumsy straw man fallacy. I never mentioned the pylons. In fact, I went out of my way on every occasion to say not the bridge, but the shorelines. Therefore, he's a liar, and this is just baseless drivel fallacy. That's it. Let's stop right here for any comments and questions up to this point.
I don't have any questions. Like you say, I know full well that you didn't mention the bridge. You very specifically go to the edges, point out that you're at 1 feet, 2 feet, 3 feet, and then you go to the other side and do the same. What we're looking for is their drop.
Yeah, I think that he confuses your other point that you had for Soundly, that you counted a couple of these pylons and the measurements between them and stuff. But that was another argument, I think.
Yeah, that wasn't a bridge. There were electrical lines, and that was a long time ago. No, he's talking about the bridge specifically here.
Okay, yeah, you never said anything about that.
Exactly.
Yeah, and they still don't understand what a tangent line is, why there should be drop. It was all their big deal about curve calculators and how if you had a tangent, there would be a drop. They calculated it themselves. And then when you go and actually measure a tangent line like the bridge, they say, no, level is now not a tangent line. You can't use the curve calculator anymore because now we're going to make level parallel to the surface of a sphere. So what can you do?
A lot of the double think and double speak, I think, with level and why do we need to redefine all these terms? I don't get it.
Because it's not curving, it's flat, and you need to be able to have different explanations depending on the set of circumstances that you're having to put up a rebuttal for.
Yeah. It's amazing.
Any more for any
All
more?
right. Yeah, we want to roll?
Yeah, am I putting you up or am I playing a bit more?
You're play at 28:15 and stop at 28:33, please.
said, well, where's the curve? The elevations are the same. Well, that's what we expect on a spherical Earth. Points A and point B are going to be at the same elevation or the same distance from the center of the Earth. There's nothing mysterious or missing here.
We ready?
Yeah, you're on.
Yeah, George. Well, where's the curve? The elevations are the same. That's what we expect on a spherical Earth. Here we go again. Number one, begging the question fallacy. You got to prove spherical Earth. Number two, if the elevations are the same, right, then in fact it's flat or level, right from the definitions that I told you about before. Here we go again. Level, not rising or falling or higher on one side, but even in all directions, horizontal or flat. Level, having no part higher than another, having a flat or even surface. So I don't know you're expecting flat and level. Yeah, because it's flat and level. Number three, you can't have a level curve. See, this is their problem. They want a level curve. I mean, they're crayon munching retards. The terms are mutually exclusive. George, again, points A and point B are going to be at the same elevation. Well, then by definition, the surface from points A to B is flat or level, right? From the Cambridge, level, not rising or falling or higher on one side, but even in all directions, horizontal or flat. That's what the surface from points A to B are, if they're at the same elevation. And again, level, having no part higher than another, having a flat or even surface. So again, you can't have a level curve, you crayon munching retards. The terms are mutually exclusive. Here he goes again, or the same distance from the center of the Earth. Okay, from your alma mater wiki, elevation is not to be confused with the distance from the center of the Earth. Period. End of story. There is no discussion here. And then the last point. There's nothing mysterious or missing here. Well, George, save for the obvious, like your IQ, science, and basic reasoning acumen, allow me to lift the veil for you. The missing mysteriousness is the 8 inches per mile squared drop. You retard Maximus. Did you guys forget about this? I mean, these clowns inexplicably forget the quintessential tenet of their spinning space monkey religion, right? It's tantamount to a Catholic forgetting Lent. Let's take a look at this. Let me try to refresh your memory, right? Have you seen this before? Right? Have you seen this little diagram before? You familiar with this? By Pythagoras or by trigonometric construction, you see this drop over here? Drop. That means vertical drop from the tangent. Remember this as you go out? Let's say this is Soundly's little choo-choo train bridge. You have to have drop, people. Right? Unbelievable that you don't remember this. Even you, George, you yourself. This is your diagram, right? You see this down here? D equals 8 inches per mile squared, right over here, right? That's drop from the tangent. You even identified it yourself. Did you forget about this already? Eating too many crayons. Clowns. Go ahead and play from 29-22. I'll tell you what, hold off on that. Any questions about this? Or comments? Go ahead.
Nope.
Oh, I didn't know he'd done such a beautiful diagram illustrating the drop that's missing. Wonderful job. Way to point out what you're now claiming isn't there. Double-speaking asshole.
Unbelievable, right? I
So,
mean,
on the one hand, you're going to tell your audience that there is drop, measurable drop, from the tangent. And then in the same breath, you're going to say, no drop, level, all around.
yeah, this one right here. Yeah, he even did it himself. I think they just forget this. Listen, guys, every point along a tangent from your feet drops. That is vertical drop away from you at 8 inches per mile squared. Everyone knew this at the beginning, back in 2015. You remember this. You live on a sphere. You don't live on a level curve. Okay? Clowns.
There's got to be, just before we move back onto the presentation, there's got to be some more comments on that. This doublespeak is the highest order of doublespeak.
Yeah. It's just too stupid to comment on it, I think.
To me, it's an attempt to pick and choose There's lots of clarification with terms and that he's citing, but the first point is to try and redefine what level is, as John's just said there at the beginning there. And that in of itself is not a definition of level, but he's asking you to accept it. And then in doing so, he's then taking that level redefined, which is basically a curve, and asking you to pretend it's level when optically viewing stuff with regards to the tangent, which we then forget about the drop. It's an odd argument he's building or not building. It seems very confused, and it doesn't, for me, it's not coherent, is the I would say.
No, it's not only him, it's all of them. They keep forgetting about the drop. It shouldn't be where's the curve. It should be where's the drop. That's what the question should be, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's built up what level is with regards to his sphere, and in doing so, he's then actually to accept that that's level, even though the implications of his equivalent level based on a sphere is that this drop then has to occur across a vast flat area. It would be visible, and it's that ignorance that doesn't occur that just seems he's cherry picking which bits he wants. He wants to first of all redefine flat, and then ignore the fact that that flat would have a curve to it as he's redefined it.
Paula, Betty, anything to add to this? I hope so.
Not really. I mean, it's the same thing over and over again. You know, they want to be inconsistent and cherry pick and begging the question, special pleading, all sorts of fallacies, because when they want their curve calculator to show something, why something isn't visible, they'll use the tangent line. And if they want something to be, the same elevation everywhere, then they don't use a tangent line. You know, it's special pleading. It's just ridiculous. It's, they don't even try to hide it.
Yeah, double speak. Yeah.
Yeah, just to summarize then, you've got pictures that they claim are showing a bridge dropping from your position, just so you can visually, rather than mathematically, conceptualize this. It's supposed to be dropping away from you. That's what they're visually telling you they're showing you. Yet, it's measured the same on both sides. So, it's not dropping, it's measuring flat. And when that example is used, they explain that it's level to the centre of the Earth, and as Paula correctly points out, that's special pleading. Suddenly you're into begging the question and assuming the Earth already, and using that explanation of a spherical Earth to get you away from the fact that it's level on all sides. This is, as I say, the height of doublespeak.
Yeah, but it's not only that. The definition from Wiki, right, from their alma mater, just told you elevation is not to be considered from the center of the Earth. So they're off the reservation at that point. Like I said, we could have stopped the discussion and went home because they're morons. Oh, I don't know, man. It's like bizarro world out there.
Right, should we play a bit more?
Yeah, let's get this is a great part coming up. I mean, if you didn't think he was a crayon munching retard after the above, then just wait for this. I love this part. Start at 29:22 and stop at 31 minutes, please.
I find it rather humorous that Quantum Eraser, Riley, and a lot of these others like to cite, give us citations. And it's quite comical that a lot of the citations that they give us are taken from children's websites. If you look at Riley's presentation here the other day on his density thing, let me bring that up here.
Okay. Still with us, John?
What's wrong with children's citations? Surely.
Hey,
that's...
hold on a second. No, it should. Did you stop at 31?
Oh, I stopped at 30. Sorry, my bad.
Yeah, stop at 31, please.
Yep, no worries.
Yeah, this was Riley's video. And he gave us 6 citations. This is how the independent variable literally destroys the ball, applying the scientific method. This is when Riley was doing his egg in the water, salt water thing, which was ridiculous in the first place. But anyway, the 6th citation, they had Slick James reading.
These are known as controls. The independent variable is controlled by you. In other words, you can manipulate the independent variable during it.
Well, I just wanted to show you what this is. Look at this. This is activity 2C. And now, if you go on to what's called Gangsta Granny website, this is a website for children, you will find this. See this? This is what Riley is giving us as his citation.
Okay.
Nothing like bashing your own head in with a shovel, huh, Georgie? Watch this. So, Georgie Fuckwit, I find it rather humorous that QE, Riley, and a lot of these others give us citations, and it's quite comical that a lot of citations that they give us are taken from children's websites. The second one, if you look at on Riley's presentation here, he gave us 6 citations. And the third one, these guys never give bona fide scientific citations or sources for to back up what they're saying. Priceless. Thank you. A, you can't count, blind Melon Chitlin. Anthony gave you 10 citations, not 6. Here they are. The citation references from Riley's video in order. Here's the children's citations. Colorado State, Penn State, Explorable.com, that's a public research organization. ThoughtCo, award-winning premier reference education site. The University of North Carolina, the University of Texas, Mr. Granny, we're going to get to that here in 1 second. The Institute of Physics, the University of Southern California, Indiana University, and Sciencing.com. Those are the 10. So these are children's websites. You willfully blind Retardia. And let's take a look at this. This is what he called I think it was gangster grannies, right? Is that what he said? Let's take a look at this. If you're watching, it's the same, right? Right. Activity 2, it's got the granny on the wheelchair, right? Bonehead. If you go down here and you highlight right at the bottom right here, let me enlarge in this for you. Can you tell me what that says, Crayon Muncher? It says Teacher Enrichment Initiatives 2012. This is copyrighted from where? The University of Texas Health Science Center at San Antonio. Love it. You see, I spent some time in San Antonio, and I was, quote unquote, part of the scientific community in San Antonio, and am very familiar with the University of Texas and the consortium and the agreements they have in the community for their high schools. Not only teaching the kids, but teaching the teachers. So, Mr. Gangster Granny, thanks for smashing your own head in with a shovel. Appreciate it, clown. And more so, flat earthers, when have you ever seen a single citation from a baller to support any claim? When? I've been here for over 3.5 years. I haven't seen a single one. They just post the citations that I give them. They don't even know most of them don't even know what a citation is. They don't know the difference between a citation and a reference. We're going to see that here further down. I mean, these people are clowns. So thanks, Georgie, for that one. I'll tell you what, if you show your face again anywhere, even after this, I don't even have to go any further. It's tantamount to the chairman of PETA showing up for work the next day after he was videotaped live clubbing baby seals with a nail spike 44-inch Louisville Slugger the morning before. Just to let you know. But I know you're totally clueless, and all those religiotards will just follow you anyway. Just whistle past the graveyard. Oh yeah, we'll just pretend we didn't see that. Like the no 8 inches of drop per mile, per square mile, or per mile squared, right? We'll just forget about that. Idiots. So I'm gonna stop right here. Any comments, claim, or questions regarding this?
Where did he get the gangster granny bit from? Did he just make it up because he saw an interesting
Slick
sprite?
James. He presented that thing.
Slick James said it was gangster grannies.
No. I think that because of Slick James was the one that made that read out that reference, and he saw Granny and make the combination. I think that's the only thing that I can think of.
He just made it up. He just made it up.
Yeah, made it up.
Right, that sounds about right. Why change the habit of a lifetime?
Yeah, he just looked at the at the reference. He didn't even look at the reference. He just looked at the paper and seen Granny on a wheelchair, right? And I don't know, just conjured in his mind. Who knows? He's delusional. That this was from a I don't know, from children, gangster grannies.
It's a children's book, guys, written by David Walliams, Gangster Granny. Quite famous.
So he's just hijacked a book written by David Walliams that's got that title and attributed it to this document. Wow.
Just by fiat. He didn't even look at the document. You can look at most documents, right? It's a PDF. You know, from the University of Texas Health Science Center in San Antonio. It's PDF. If you go in there, you can read about all this stuff, right? And it's copyrighted. I seen the copyright. I started laughing hard, boy. What a clown.
John, what I didn't get was why implying that this was children's literature, even if it is or it isn't, was in some way invalidating it in terms of the underlying truth that it's speaking. I'm not sure why that logic was even put out there by him to, discredit the source, as if children are told something completely different. That they're, the initial argument didn't hold water to me. You know what I mean? It's just a nonsense argument in of itself.
Right.
Yeah, but they say that they bring these children the basics of the scientific method, and that in later times, when you progress in science, then more intricate scientific methods are applicable.
And it's a poisoning the well fallacy, because unless they can show that it's totally wrong, that's all they're doing is dismissing it by where it came from. And when it has that citation to the universities, they certainly are poisoning the well, because otherwise they have to say that children are being taught nonsense in science class.
Well, that's what I mean. Unless in there it's saying actually in all scientific methods at 11 o'clock you have to stop and have a bottle of milk. How else would children's teaching of the scientific method from the foundational basics be any different to somebody at degree level? Those foundational basics are the same. They're what you actually learn as a kid. They're what underpin it all.
They wouldn't be any different. They'd be exactly the same. So discrediting that source based on its application for children, if that's the case, is non-relevant. It doesn't make any difference. But moreover, if you're listening to George and you're taking your, education from him, then be aware that a lot of the stuff he's spouting is complete nonsense. He's just making it up on the spot.
Yeah, what a clown. Thanks for that, Georgie. That's what I say. Just let these people open up their incoherent pie holes. They'll do your work for you. Love it. Priceless. We ready to continue here?
Any more? Clearly not. Right. Do you want me to play the next section?
Yeah, hold off 1 second. You think all the above was Elmer Fudd, retard? I'll tell you what, it wasn't. Someone hold this booger eater's beer. Play from 31 minutes to 31 minutes 45.
I mean, it's not bad. It's a good description of independent, dependent variables, but it's humorous that these guys never pick bona fide scientific citations or sources for to back up what they are saying. Now, in one case, Quantum Eraser has done this. Back in when we were talking about Coriolis in his back when I visited Oakley's hangout about 6 months ago or so.
Hey, you back on?
Oh, no, that wasn't Nathan Oakley's hangout, George. Not with this citation. This is the citation that I confronted him with when he first started trying to fire into Brian Mullen. Georgie Porgy made a video and just everything was wrong in his video. He started calling Brian Mullen names, and this was about 2.5 years ago. And this is the citation. Everyone's aware of this citation. We always use it. This is by Seagar Douglas. It's Introduction to Ocean Sciences, 2nd edition, Critical Concept Reminders, the Coriolis effect. When set in motion, freely moving objects, including air, that's atmosphere, and water masses, clouds and water vapor, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Because freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they are subject to an apparent deflection called the Coriolis effect. To an observer rotating with the Earth, freely moving objects that travel in a straight line appear to travel in a curved path on the Earth. So I pummeled this 2 friggin' years ago. Let's check this out. So here's the Pontiff Maximus from Retardia, right? Let's go down. And by the way, this is what George in episode 325, 330 in that area, when he came on the show defending himself against the Brian Mullen train wreck. This is the video he pulled up, and he had all his information, right? He put all his information that he conjures underneath his YouTube video, like a lunatic. And I said, boy, that looks familiar, right? Well, there's a reason why that looks familiar, because if you keep scrolling down, that's what you're going to find. Quantum Eraser. This is over 2 years ago, right? So I commented to him, and we had a back and forth. That was the first time I ran into him. I was pretty pissed about what he was doing against Brian Mullen, right? So check this out. I posted that citation from Douglas Seagar to him. This is what he wrote back. George, hey, George, that dog is smarter than you are, by the way. So everyone sees it's him. Houston, you need to learn to spell Houston correctly. It's not Huston, okay? This is what George said. Listen to this closely. I know nothing of this book nor its author. He's talking about the Introduction to Ocean Sciences and Douglas Seagar. We're going to get to that here in a minute. Listen to this. I did not expect you to stoop to quote mine from a text your opponent might not be familiar with. You just bashed your own head in with a shovel. Anyone can quote mine, which adds nothing to the discussion. If you want to text, without this text at my disposal, how am I to know whether or not you took the passages you lifted out of context or even understand it clearly? So I dismiss this aspect of your argument. I expect better of you. Clown show. Do you know what quote mining even is? I'd like to know. You don't know what quote mining is. I'd like to hear your definition. So the pseudo-intellectual booger-eating retard charges me with quote mining after he stated he didn't know anything about the text or the author, right? when quote mining is defined as taking the text out of context. Y'all get it? He would have to have already read the document, read the context, figured out where I got it from, and then figured out where the context contradicted my citation. He didn't even have the book. He even admitted he didn't know the author of the book. This is tantamount to charging me with robbing the First National Bank of Houston without ever being in Houston or ever going to Texas. That's how retarded this is. They don't know what they're talking about. They use terms and phrases. They have no idea what their meanings are. They've heard it somewhere and just quote mining, last port in the storm, because the citation pummels them, right? Thanks for that one, George. I really like that. That was priceless. Go ahead, play from 31:45. Stop at 32:42, please.
Oops. Quantum Eraser mentioned a book that he was using for his points. And this book is by Douglas Seeger. It's called Introduction to Ocean Sciences. And again, to show you the dishonesty of these people and what he does, is he, Quantum Eraser's noted for his cute little cutty pasties that he's always putting up, and he embellishes them with boldface print and colored text and all this. It's like a script. He colors the text to cue him when he should raise his voice and start yelling and stuff. It's really quite humorous. But
We ready?
Yeah.
Dunning-Kruger moron charges me with dishonesty without any support whatsoever, right? Then immediately rolls into an appeal to style format fallacy. That's all it is, right? Number 2, cute cutty pasties. Let me tell you something, folks. This is code in Retardia for citation support. That's what they call citation support, cutty pasties or copy pastas. Just let me, it's citation support. So posting citations in support of claims is frowned upon, Pontiff? Confirmed without a shadow of a doubt. This crayon muncher never constructed a research paper, reviewed scientific literature, or attended university. You bashed your own head in with a shovel again. And script, to have a working script, booger eater, others would have to be on the same script, or it wouldn't work. Start at play at 32:42, stop at 33:18, please.
But anyway, what he did is if he lifts these things called CCs, critical concepts. So if you go back and you look at what he posts in these Hangouts, you'll see like CC12 or whatever, the Coriolis effect. And I want to read a few things that he does not include. He never takes these things at face value and lifts them accurately. He many times modifies a text. He changes the text around or inserts text to give it the meaning he wants. Now, remember.
Okay, you're up.
Sorry about that. I was on mute. Right. Paula, can you do me a favor? Can you read the text from the citation from Seeger Douglas, Introduction to Ocean Sciences, 2nd edition, Critical Concept Reminders, the Coriolis effect. Can you please read that for us?
Yep. First point, when set in motion, freely moving objects, including air and water masses, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Second point, because freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they're subject to an apparent deflection called the Coriolis effect. To an observer rotating with the Earth, freely moving objects that travel in a straight line appear to travel in a curved path on the Earth.
Did I change anything here? What did I change? Oh, you see, he looks up here and says, oh, he's inserted and changes this. George, you just bashed your own head in with the shovel again. You see these brackets right here? Well, you're allowed to put these brackets in citations, right? Did you know that? Let's take a look-see. So, how to use brackets in academic writing. Some common rules. Bracket uses in quotations. Here are some of the most common uses for brackets in quotations. Let's read this together. Use square brackets to include words within a quote that are not part of the original quote. For example, if a quoted passage is not entirely clear, words enclosed in square brackets can be added to clarify the meaning. So thanks again. Listen, I learned this in high school. So I don't know. Did you graduate high school? We're not even at university level yet. You friggin' clown. Thank you very much. So all I did was emphasize atmosphere as air because atmo means what? Air. We're going to get to that one here in a couple minutes. It's going to be lovely. And water masses, that's clouds and water vapor. They move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Too funny. Do you think there's some impropriety here, you clown? You do because you're retarded. And you have Dunning-Kruger, clinical level. So we're not done yet. Please play from 3318 to 3414.
Remember, this is his go-to textbook. It's called Introduction to Ocean Sciences by Douglas A. Seeger. Now, let's read this thing about Coriolis effect. And of course, I'm going to do more on Coriolis effect next Sunday, which will use some of this stuff. And I will have diagrams and view graphs for you so that you can follow along. But right here, when set in motion, freely moving objects, including air and water masses, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Well, what that means, you have to go into the body of text to read it, because what this is not saying that the atmosphere is independent of the rotating Earth.
What the what?
Let me know.
What?
Hold on.
In the passage.
Hold on, I'm going to read it, then you can talk. I'll stop. So, this is what George says. This is not saying that the atmosphere is not independent of the rotating Earth when he just read it to you. When set in, this is from Douglas Seeger. When set in motion, freely moving objects, including air and water masses, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. He just said it. You just read it. So I'm going to stop. It's a violation of law of non-contradiction too, but I'll stop. Go ahead.
Well, two things. One, he's charged you with a fallacy that would require him... I'm going back a step, sorry. He's charged you with a fallacy that would require him to actually understand the context of the piece. And he's also moaning at you that you've cited something that he hasn't read already. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, he read it. It makes it absolutely plain in what he reads, and then he literally double speaks the audience in the next breath to say that the citation doesn't mean what it means. I mean, if you're watching this guy and not recognising that he's read something out and then entirely contradicted it in the next breath, then you're welcome to him. You know, you're just stupid enough to be listening to this guy.
I don't know, man. wait till the next one. They're going to come in rapid fire.
Probably some of the points that are the maybe Paula, do you want to go first? Anything to add?
No, I was just sitting there going, wait, read that again. What did he say? Wait a minute. It doesn't what it doesn't. I don't know.
Well, you can think of it as such, right?
Yeah,
Oh,
you can
no.
think of it that way.
Adam?
Yeah, it's amazing.
Unbelievable.
Any comments on that, Adam?
Well, no, not on that, but I'd just take a step back, which I found just as incredulous, which was the accusation in terms of your quote mining to present a different point of view. It's very difficult, as John outlines there, if you present quotes correctly and if you want to add your own context to things, which isn't happening in John's quotes, you know, per se. It's very difficult to take a person's quote, place it there, and in most cases the meaning comes from the individual reading that quote as written by the person writing it. I don't know what special skills John could have by doing that and applying it to mean to somebody else who's reading it a contradictory point to what ballers believe. It just seems it's again his rhetoric of talking nonsense, throwing an accusation as if that you'll know the fallacy, but basically that bit of shit will stick, and therefore allow him to disprove your point without disproving it. It's a strange, dishonest way of debating you're kind of highlighting as you go through his stuff.
Not just not debunking the point, reading the point in black and white, making it absolutely clear, and then just flat out reversing it and saying it doesn't mean what it means.
That last one is the kind of highlight of and the kind of highlights the point exactly, doesn't it? I mean, that is taking it to the absolute extreme, that, isn't it? Just complete. What's your phrase, Nathan? Pissing in your face.
Yeah, absolutely pissing in your face. Reading it out so you can understand it, you nod along. Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, the Earth and the atmosphere, they're separate. Yeah, the Earth rotates underneath the atmosphere. Yeah, I understood. You've just read it to me. What's that you say? It doesn't mean they're separate. You're having a laugh. Apparently this gets better.
When you open the lines up to see if any ballers can come back to defend that concept.
Yeah, we'll specifically ask. There is a Discord link, so towards the end of the presentation, or now, you just will be sat in silence. But yeah, feel free to join the Discord server. There is a link below. We'll get to that a bit later, though. So apparently this gets better, John. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
I'll mute.
So please play from 3414 and stop at 3502.
Okay, well, while this is playing out, can you just disconnect and reconnect because your connection's a bit duff?
Okay. Give me wait one.
Nathan, can you also open the sound in Discord? Maybe that people that want to go into Discord already can listen.
I can, but it means that they could also interrupt because it's on the same line as the sound for this.
They can't because they're all on mute.
Oh, perfect. Yes, in that case, I will unmute for them. So we'll do some technical things while John's hopefully reconnecting.
No, I'm back. How is it?
Perfect. That's much better. I thought it was my end, but it's yours. So we're at 34:15, and we're ending at where am I? 35:02.
34:14. Stop at 35:02.
This talks about air masses and water masses. Air masses in the atmosphere, or cooler or warmer water masses within the ocean. You can have this. Like in the atmosphere, you can have an average mean atmosphere, and within the atmosphere, you can have like a cold air mass that comes down this so-called polar vortex that we get here in northern Minnesota. You can have these cold air masses coming down from the pole into the United States. This is what it's referring to. These masses of air, cold masses of air, act independently of the atmosphere in general.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, right. So
It's a good job I was muted there, John. It's a good job I was muted.
Okay, all right. You can. Or I'm going to stop after this, so you can have
you need to rescreen
whatever
share,
you want to say.
You need to rescreen share.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Wait, what?
So far,
Tell me when it's up.
Yeah, I got you.
Right. So, Georgie, these cold masses of air act independently of the atmosphere in general. Oh, really? So, atmo, Georgie, means a combining form, meaning air. So, what in the world? So, Georgie, cold air masses act independently of the atmosphere, air. So cold air masses act independently of air. You see now, old get. And by the way, so what you're saying is there's only a Coriolis effect when we're under a polar vortex? Unbelievable. And since we're talking about air, I wanted to give your chief bishop a dishonorable mention, the rumpus, aka the doofus. As you can see here, this was about 2.5 years ago too. Don't pay any attention to that. We have air is not the atmosphere. So what he's saying here is air is not the air sphere. I mean, how can you even show your face after this, people? I mean, you guys are finished, man. Time to pack it up and go home. Clowns. All right. Eddie, go ahead. You can go ahead and you can comment on your own here.
Yeah, it does get better, doesn't it?
Can we see the face of Jose when at the end of that clip? I think that he did something funny also with a depression over his head.
Right, with a cloud and him.
Yeah, you should look at the expression on his face when George just said that, and then his face was hilarious. I mean, look at that.
Yeah, there was something I forgot to clarify earlier. I know we're discussing the actual definitions given for the Coriolis-based effect that is alleged to be on Earth. I just want to clarify at this stage, we don't observe this effect. So for anybody watching that's kind of wondering why we're clarifying and being very precise about how it's detailed that Earth has a Coriolis effect, it does not. If it did, you'd get on an aeroplane and the continent that you're travelling to would come towards you, or you'd be fighting the turn of the Earth. That never happens, and I just at this stage want to make it absolutely abundantly clear that the reason we are detailing and going to great efforts to unpack the doublespeak is to explain why they confuse people. There's a set definition for the Coriolis effect on Earth. You have the Earth turning underneath. It's as simple as that. But they must obfuscate and confuse that detail about the Coriolis effect because we don't have one. I just want to make that abundantly clear before anybody else makes any further comments. Maybe start with Betty. Betty, what have you got to say about all that nonsense?
Yeah. What can you say? It's a lot of doublespeak again. Equivocation with these words. It's redefining them, or it's amazing. I don't know what to say. These people, you never expect them to do this stuff, but then and every time they get new angles on these words and make them seem that they are something else, and they hold two thoughts at the same time. And when you point them to, they go to a different topic, so you never can catch them on it. Make it all confusing and use all kinds of different words and make it confusing, and then people think, oh yeah, that must be true because it's so difficult. So
yeah, but this is specifically about the Coriolis effect. It opens up the Coriolis effect because no one knows what it is. None of these brain dead retards know. They just parrot each other. right?
They
So
still think something about tornadoes and stuff, right?
hurricanes, right?
Hurricanes,
The hurricanes, yeah.
And the water spinning in your bathroom and stuff.
Yeah, that's apparently deflecting. We're going to get into this here over the next few minutes.
Okay, that was going to be my next question, because if it wasn't, yeah, great. Paula?
No, just the same old problem. We he keeps highlighting over and over because they keep saying it over and over. And when they say that, first of all, they haven't proved that stuff moves the way they said anyway. And second, they compare it to, this is very much like the problem with the Foucault pendulum, because on a merry-go-round or whatever you call a roundabout, you're moving on a spinning platter. But they're telling us that's not what the Earth is. It's not spinning horizontally like that. It's you're going actually vertically, because that's the way it's spinning. It's not spinning around you. You're spinning on the surface of it. And so if there's this curvy motion, as like you've said, in I don't know how many shows, if it works on a bullet, it should work on an airplane. And they do the double speak thing and the special pleading thing, saying when, why this one does and that one doesn't, when the principle is exactly the same and the speed difference doesn't help them at all. It works against them. So it's one big mass of fallacies and dishonesty, really, because how can they think that those thoughts and sentences make sense to them when they don't make sense to anybody else? How can they make sense of saying, like the example just before where he reads the words on the page and then says the exact opposite? How does that happen with them not being aware of it? That's what really got me puzzled.
Hey, we're going to talk about the airplanes and bullets here in the next couple minutes, too. Nice that you brought that up. That's too funny. Nathan, you don't have to go to the video. Could you just play it? Because this is going to be a quick turnaround, just a few seconds. Just go to my screen and just play from 3502 to 3505, please.
Atmosphere in general rotates with the Earth, but you can.
So, right? You get it. George, the atmosphere in general rotates with the Earth, right? Really? Then there would be no Coriolis effect, you dumb monkey. Let's pull this up for him. I don't know what to say. I don't know how many times that I showed this before. Have you seen this before? There's a Coriolis effect on Wiki. You need 2 reference frames. Listen, in the inertial frame of reference, the upper part, the black ball moves in a straight line. However, the observer, red dot, who is standing in what? The rotating non-inertial frame of reference, the lower part of the picture, sees the object as following a curved path due to Coriolis. Don't you get this? This is too easy to understand, right? The ball goes straight. If it's not attached to the rotating frame of reference, it goes straight. However, you being the red dot retard going in a curve, right? Or going around rotating on the rotating reference frame, see it as it's curving, but it's not curving. It's just an apparent deflection. But the important part is that you need 2 frame of reference for the existence of the Coriolis effect. It's just that simple. So, number 2, show the experiment where gases or a gas rotate with a rotating solid body just 5 centimeters above the surface, then provide the mechanism. Oh, and you do understand gases have no intermolecular bonds. Obviously rhetorical. So do gas molecules attach to the Earth and each other by Velcro, superglue, molasses, pixie dust, other clowns? Gas molecules, i.e. air, vibrate and move freely and randomly at high speeds. Here, let me show you. This is a good visual for retards, right? Hopefully this will help from you. From Purdue University, gases, liquids, and solids. You see the difference here. See, this is the microscopic views of each of these solids, liquids, and gases. Do you see that there's a big difference here between not only gases and liquids, but solids and their behavior, right? Nothing laying on top of each other here. Nothing attached. What's attached here? Clowns. You'd fail 3rd grade general science. Question. How can gas molecules that make up the atmosphere, that move freely and randomly at high speeds, yet, according to you, rotate with the Earth, i.e., not moving freely and randomly at high speeds, rotate with the Earth from west to east? It's over. Kaboom! It's a violation of the law of non-contradiction. Done. Please explain. Number 3, please explain east, north, and south surface winds, their existence on a spinning ball that has the atmosphere that's air, wind, and gas rotating with it from west to east, right? It's another violation of the law of non-contradiction right here. Bonus question. How can you have different wind speeds moving in different directions simultaneously at differing elevations of the atmosphere, all the while the atmosphere is collectively spinning east in unison the same? Another violation of the law of non-contradiction. It'd be easier reconciling married bachelors than all these train wrecks. By the way, let's keep it simple for you. These are contradictory statements, A and B. A, the atmosphere spins with the Earth from west to east, or B, the existence of east, north, south, northeast, and southeast surface winds. And they don't have to be surface winds. It could be any wind. Surface, 5,000, 10,000, 15,000. You go by threes, multiples of threes, any multiple. They could be moving in all kinds of different directions. How can they be doing that and then moving at the same speed and moving in the same directions at the same time? It's nonsensical bollocks. Which do you think? You got to choose one here. Which do you think is false, retards? A or B? Moreover, following your yarn, every cubic nanometer of atmosphere traveling horizontally from the equator to the center of rotation must have differing tangential speeds. And every cubic nanometer of atmosphere rising in elevation from each respective horizontal cubic nanometer of atmosphere must have differing tangential speeds. In fact, the higher the elevation, the faster they'll need to travel to keep up. And all this rolling along at differing speeds in unison east, another violation of the law of non-contradiction. This is so far beyond preposterous, ludicrous absurdity. Evolution, whatever that is, multiverses, and married bachelors are blushing. And does anyone know how far up this increasing speed, rope-a-dope, fairy tale spinning atmosphere ends? I'd like to see that. It'd give a whole new meaning to guillotine wind shear. Goodness gracious, people. And if you don't see it by now, if you guys are listening to this and you're not seeing this bollocks by now, please seek a lobotomy immediately. And P.S., where is the energy coming from the continuous shot in the arm injections needed to keep each successive cubic nanometer of atmosphere higher elevation brethren in tow? Alice in Wonderland is more tenable than your ball-tard spinning space monkey religion. You live in a fairy tale. Retardia. Questions, comments?
Adam, do you want to go first?
Excuse me. Yeah, go on then. Let's just assuming that we're giving this theoretical facility for the Earth's atmosphere to stick to the just one movement of the Earth, the rotation. There obviously are others to consider in the heliocentric model, but if we're just considering that rotation, and the thing that from the very beginning for me when you start to think flat Earth is exactly those wind speeds concept. And if you just think east to west, west to east, just call it 100 mile an hour wind going in one direction is rotating with the Earth, and it's also doing another 100 miles an hour on top. But if you've got another wind suddenly going 100 mile an hour the opposite direction, then is that actually moving via force description at 1100 miles an hour to be given a relative direction? I've never understood how the wind speeds we experience can be explained on a rotating ball anyway, but to try and then link all of that nonsense that in some way it creates a Coriolis but doesn't create a Coriolis because it's in a second reference frame but not in a second reference frame is a game where you just lose George's point for me.
I think it's a forced necessity. So you've got the lesser of two evils is the Coriolis effect on a rotating Earth, because the last points, the most potent, if you ask me, John, are towards the end when you start describing how you'd have the different surface winds with layers of different directions working if they were attached, and it simply can't work.
John, put back up that molecular picture. That's a great explanator of actually what you're asking to be happening, because particularly gases, they're working independently on the molecular level. So to be following too many laws, and like I say, and that's what I'm talking about, east-west rotation, for those things to be happening, for those molecules to be suddenly going with such a force to be able to oppose the rotation of the Earth and be traveling at 100 mile an hour appreciable experienceable wind, it's just nonsensical that is achievable within that dynamic system. You're obviously going to get turbulence, but that level of oppositional turbulence to create a wind in that direction just seems completely opposed to the dynamics you see in there of how gases work.
Do you guys see it? Is it up?
Oh yeah, I've got it up. I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. But the heliocentric priests have spoken, Adam. You know, George is wrong in terms of his assertions. He's just double speaking the situation because it doesn't make any sense, and we don't observe rapidly decreased air travel as the Earth rotates underneath. So his double speak is in violation of the heliocentric rhetoric to begin with. So he's defying it because it needs to be, which without questioning motivation, he's just wrong. So he's asserting that they're velcroed together, and the bottom line is all of the priests of heliocentrism make it very clear. Neil deGrasse Tyson being the perfect example, he gives a tweet out that says that field goal was made because of the Coriolis effect. Well, what he's describing is the ball travelling in, albeit a straight line, in the second reference frame, as the first reference frame continues to rotate underneath, moving the position of the field goal and making the goal possible, where if the Earth was not rotating underneath, it would not be. So the heliocentric priests have spoken. They just use their examples very carefully and tweet them out amongst the football-loving crowd who aren't really paying attention to what Neil deGrasse Tyson says when their favourite team wins. So ultimately speaking, we will focus on the fact that he is making it plain. They claim there is a Coriolis effect. However, if the Earth rotates underneath a football, it also rotates underneath an aeroplane, but we don't have reduced air time in terms of our travelling durations. So it's not an effect that we can observe with something with a long hand time, even though they claim that it is something that exists. George is flying in the face of that with the doublespeak side of the rhetoric and saying the Earth and atmosphere are attached as one. No Coriolis effect in George's explanation.
Nathan, my mind's gone blank, but have we got a Coriolis-based housekeeping question?
Yeah, we ask for axial rotation evidence every day.
Yeah.
The reason I don't... Well, it's a good question. Why don't I ask for evidence of the Coriolis effect? Well, because the Coriolis effect's real. So why would I ask for something that I know...
No, I was going to say Earth-based. We've got, it's got to be Coriolis caused by the Earth. I just wonder if that would be...
No, again,
I was racking my brain whether there was.
There is a good answer. I promise. There's a good answer.
Sorry.
There's a good answer. It's because when the assertion of Coriolis is used to assert that the Earth spins, But that's so that they can detach it once, they can make it once removed with their example that gives you an explanation for the Earth spinning in the first instance. And when you pick it apart, they barrage you with doublespeak or attack your career. So it's one of these top level heliocentric doublespeak nonsense subjects that's really quite closely monitored, it seems. And this show will get a lot of comments, I guarantee you of that. But they need to have one rhetoric given by the mainstream, that rhetoric being Coriolis exists. What we're asking for in the housekeeping to answer your question is not the once removed bit, the bit that is real, Coriolis effect is real, just not Earth-based. What they're trying to demonstrate is Earth turn. So we ask for axial rotation. If you want to come and claim Coriolis, which often happens, to prove Earth rotation, then that'll get ripped apart like we're doing now.
See, you're right. Sorry, mate. I was running through them, all the house, trying to remember them all, and I couldn't picture it. But yeah, sorry, it's there.
You're forgiven. Paula, you
sorry,
there?
John.
Yeah, it seems to me, I'm trying to picture what, because words fail us for a lot of this stuff, but it's like as though what their view of the atmosphere is if you get into a car on the highway and roll down the windows and stick your head out the window, that the wind will stop pelting you in the face as soon as you get cruising speed because you're not accelerating anymore, though the air is traveling with you. That's what it sounds like to me, that there should be no wind outside the car because it's moving with you by that point. That's the best I can come up with.
That's better than their doublespeak, Paula, but no. You there, Betty?
I get what Paul is saying there. If that's the case, then what is causing the air to be accelerated? It's kind of the reverse of that. It's what's causing the air to be accelerated to such a level as to keep up with the air so that when it's a calm day, it's actually moving at 1,000 miles an hour at the equator. What's causing that airspeed, if it is attached or it isn't attached? And if it is attached and it's linked, what's causing the link to generate that airspeed so that it's a calm day at the equator?
I've got to now unpack that nonsense. Okay, so we're not actually rotating, and the side of the argument that George Netanyahu takes is to explain away why we don't experience these things. So we don't experience 1,000 mile an hour turn on the equator. It appears like if it was turning, it's all attached. But of course that doesn't work for all the violations of the law of non-contradiction that John went through earlier. So you can't have that as the actual rhetoric, but you need somebody somewhere, George, to explain why we don't experience that. Well, it's all attached, flying in the face of the actual rhetoric. As I say, and I'll keep saying it, this is the pinnacle of doublespeak.
Yeah, the funny part is that in this argument they want the Earth to be a closed system, because then the air is sort of contained and can rotate alongside with it, like in a car, like traveling with you in a car, like what Paula said. So one time they want to have an open system, and on other times they wanted to have it closed. So also there the doublespeak enters. And every time that this argument is, John had this argument from the beginning, and I've seen him post it to many people before. And every time you see these words like the system being closed or something, or they bring up motorized planes being the cause that they can.
We're gonna get to that here in a second.
Yeah, or they come up with gravity things that the air is holding to the Earth and stuff, and you get to from one point to another. So I've seen John also on Hangouts in earlier days and trying to get this point out, and it's all been said, it's all been repeated before, and it's the doublespeak never ends. It's amazing.
I don't know if I should take the honours away from you. Do you want to read what Menace to Sobriety left in the Discord server? If you don't want to read it, I'll read it.
Yeah, let's see if I can pull it up. Yeah, he said, atmosphere isn't connected to the Earth. That's what that means. It does, however, move with the Earth because its rotation with the Earth is the result of friction. you guys understand this, but you're being intellectually dishonest in order to push your narrative. That's what
Okay,
he
before
said.
you comment, I'm just going to repeat.
That was my
Hold
point,
on.
Nathan.
I knew I'd have to calm down people after that. Right, I'm going to repeat certain sections for those of you in the audience that might not understand why the guffaws of laughter have just followed that. So I'm going to read them and then pause. Please, members of the panel, hold your laughter. So the first statement: atmosphere isn't connected to the Earth. Full stop. Brief pause. Yep. That's what that means. Let's ignore that. It does, however, move with the Earth.
Whoa.
You left out the dramatic pause. But yeah, so here we have somebody beautifully summarising the doublespeak. In the first statement, it isn't connected. And in the second statement, it is travelling with it. Effectively connected with it. Same reference frame. So in his first statement, atmosphere isn't connected. That would be a demonstration of two reference frames. Atmosphere and Earth rotating underneath. Atmosphere isn't connected to the Earth, as Menace to Sobriety first states. You have two reference frames. Second statement, it does, however, move with the Earth. Then it's only one reference frame, as George argues. Well, if it's travelling with the Earth, there's only one reference frame. So in one paragraph or one statement, he's managed to doublespeak beautifully. Thank you, Menace to Sobriety, for so eloquently summarising the doublespeak for us. Excellent example.
Yeah, and he's going to also make a video about it, to a sort of demolition of Oakley and QE. So
you do that. Thanks in advance for the advert.
yep.
Again, what is the assumption of cause? Is it the same assumption of cause of the speed of rotation then, of the mass, which there's all the explanations for? But what?
Oh, wait a second. Define mass.
Let me finish on just what the text Nathan read out was alluding to, that the fact that this speed of rotation by the mass was in some way able to create a turbulence of equivalence that kept up with the rotating mass, which by definition, if you whisk your hand around a jar, the air doesn't move as fast as you're whisking your hand around. You know, it's a very different thing. It does not keep up and stick around your hand. It's a turbulent effect that whisks off on its own. So I'm confused as to, even if you can make the claim.
Well, it's because you can't square the circle, Adam. You're an intelligent man, and you're trying to square the circle. You can't.
Exactly. Listen, I'm not done with this presentation yet. I just want to let you guys know.
You need to Skype back up. Do you need presenting, or do we need to listen to a little bit more of George?
We need to move on because I got more here.
Okay, let's get you back up.
Sorry, if we keep trying to unpick each contradiction within each statement, it does get to you. I will cease.
No. This is great.
Comprehend.
I have no issue with this dragging out this show. I like this subject a lot. Carry on, John. You presented.
So play from 35:28 and then stop at 36:02.
At 35:28.
35:28 and stop at 36:02.
That is outside the average rotational motion of the atmosphere of the Earth. Now, it says, because these freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they are subject to apparent deflection called the Coriolis effect. And that's what that's referring to, is like if you throw a ball, it's in what we call ballistic flight. That's what he means by freely moving objects, objects that are in ballistic flight. They're not subjected to the general rotation of the atmosphere.
Yeah. You see what he's doing, right? We've all heard this before, right? From the clown show, retards. So George says, if you throw a ball, it's in what we call ballistic flight. That's what he means by freely moving objects. Really? Post a citation for us, please. You also need to define ballistic flight. I know what you're trying to do, you weasel, crayon muncher, right? We need you to define ballistic flight. What he's trying to say is that airplanes, that the Coriolis effect doesn't affect airplanes. You know, anything that is self-propelled. That's what they're trying to say, right? It doesn't matter, Pontiff, Maximus, retard. Whether it's an airplane, it doesn't matter. Anything not attached to the earth is freely moving. Is an airplane freely moving? Yeah. The pilot can turn. He can do somersaults. He can do anything. Is a helicopter freely moving? Yes. Is a balloon freely moving? Yes. Right? That's what he's talking about. But you're trying to weasel out here, and I'm going to jackhammer you. You ready? What about airplanes? Are they in ballistic flight, Georgie? So according to you, airplanes are not affected by the Coriolis effect. That's your implication. You'll try to weasel your way out, but you won't be able to. Listen to this from ThoughtCo. The Coriolis effect, also called the Coriolis force, is defined as the apparent deflection of objects such as what? Airplanes, Georgie! Wind, missiles, ocean currents, moving in a straight path. See, this is the key. This is moving in a straight path. Anything not tethered to the earth moving in a straight path is the key relative to the Earth's surface. The main cause of the Coriolis effect is the Earth's rotation. As the Earth spins in a counterclockwise direction on its axis, anything flying or flowing, anything flying or flowing. Do you get that, crayon munchers? Anything flying or flowing a long distance above its surface is deflected. That's apparent deflection, by the way. This occurs because as something moves freely, not just a ball, your little ballistics that you don't know what you're talking about with. Anything flying or flowing moves freely above the Earth's surface. The Earth is moving east on the object at a faster rate. And by the way, spinning space monkeys. The argument against your belly laugher religion has nothing to do with apparently deflected bullets, airplanes, and clouds, right? See, apparently deflected means they're not deflected. There's no bullets and airplanes and clouds being actually deflected here, by the way. This argument is about the Coriolis effect's causes. The two causes that I went over before. The two separate reference frames. Next block of instruction, how to turn a doorknob on Thursdays. Hey, Nathan, play from 3602, stop 3637, please.
And I'm not going to go into the rest of this because I'll be discussing this later. But here is the interesting thing. He lifts these, quantum eraser lifts these bullet points, massages them, rearranges the words or interjects words into it to give it different meaning. And then he denies that the Earth is spinning or rotating, and he denies the Coriolis effect, but yet he gets all his stuff from the chapter in Critical Concepts that is discussing the Coriolis effect. And not only that.
Okay.
Right. So, Georgie, he says, QE lifts the points, massages them, rearranges the words, or interjects words into it to give it different meaning. But then he denies that the Earth is spinning or the Earth or rotating, and he denies the Coriolis effect. This is a lie, by the way. But yet he gets all his stuff from the chapter in Critical Concepts that is discussing the Coriolis effect. Okay, number one, for the sake of argument, if all the claims just stated above were true, which they are not, but if they were true, it still makes no friggin' sense. He has no point here. There is no conclusion. It's not only non sequitur, it's not even non sequitur because there's nothing to follow. Number two, massages the lifted points, eh? Well, he didn't provide any evidence of that. The only thing he's done so far is read what I exactly wrote. So he's a liar, and of course, another baseless drivel fallacy. And P.S. massages text. That's a reification fallacy. Number 3, rearranges the words. Another liar, baseless drivel fallacy. Number 4, interjects words. See what he's talking about. We're going to get to this again. So interjects words. This is just a lack or poorly educated moron, as we went over before. See the discussion on brackets above. Moreover, Paula, can you slowly read the citation from Seagar Douglas, Introduction to Ocean Sciences, 2nd edition, Critical Concept Reminders for us? We're going to go through here step by step and see if I've done any of these things. Okay?
Okay, I already read the first 2. You want me to continue?
No, I want you to read the first 2 again.
Okay. The first one is, when set in motion, freely moving objects, including air and water masses, move in straight paths while the Earth continues to rotate independently. Second point, because freely moving objects are not carried with the Earth as it rotates, they are subject to an apparent deflection called the Coriolis effect. To an observer rotating with the Earth, freely moving objects that travel in a straight line appear to travel in a curved path on the Earth.
Thank you very much. Does anybody see any rearrangement of words or interjecting words? You don't. Crayon munchers, like I said, I already went over brackets. No problem here. So you're full of shit. Number 5, I never denied the existence of the Coriolis effect. Never. Quote me. You're a liar, another baseless drivel fallacy with no support, obviously. And number 6, I get all my stuff. That's why we love you, Georgie. Your meticulous attention to excruciating detail. OCD-like. So I get all my stuff from the chapter in Critical Concepts. He's a liar, another baseless drivel fallacy. I also get not only from Seagar Douglas above with the Coriolis effect, I also have this definition right here that I use from Oregon State. Also this definition for the Coriolis effect. We've all seen these before. I've used them before from encyclopedia.com, and including ThoughtCo's definition that I just went over above with the Coriolis effect. So this is all just horse shit, right? You're just throwing stuff at a wall incoherently. So, and finally, the coup de grace. Nathan, please play from 36:37, stop 37:49.
If you go further into the text, look at this. Spherical Earth, people. Seagar talks about a spherical Earth. Let's go more into this thing. And look, not only that, look at this. A cutaway of the spherical Earth. Look at that. What does that say? Gravity. Arrows of force, of gravitational force pointing towards the center of the Earth. Gravity. Okay? Nothing in this book has ever denied that the Earth is spherical or rotating or has an atmosphere that rotates with the Earth. If you go into this text, there's many places in this text, this go-to text that Quantum Eraser likes to use, that talks about a spinning Earth and an atmosphere that's carried along with this spinning Earth. How about this? How about gas pressure next to a vacuum sort of thing? Oh, look at this. Chapter 7 of Seagar's book. What's this? This looks like the famous blue marble.
What? It's the book that we're quoting for the doublespeak. What's he talking about?
Hold up. So, George, it would have just been better if you stopped before you started this whole nightmare and stuck a piece of dynamite in your mouth and just lit the fuse. It would have been less painful. You are a certified moron. We're going to go over this. This is important. It's not only for George. A lot of these crayon munchers do this. So George is shocked and amazed that a secular textbook on ocean sciences discusses spherical Earth, gravity, gas pressure, and the blue marble. I thought we were discussing the Coriolis effect, George, but you just go down this road because you're a clueless pretender clown. The shock is just over friggin' whelming. You pretender clown muppet, but thank you. See, the innuendo peddled by this psychopathic, poorly educated, bona fide booger-eating retard is that since one of the references I use explaining the Coriolis effect also discusses his religious fairy tales that I laugh at, that it somehow impugns or refutes my citation. He's not the only one that thinks this. The truly hilarious part, he unwittingly, like I just said, he unwittingly just bashed his own head in with a shovel and lit an M80 and put it in his mouth, more like a stick of dynamite. Here's the concept that they're going for, folks. But in the very same French reference you cited from about boll weevils, it says that astronomy is science. Well, dumbass, did I cite the astronomy is science part, or did I cite the boll weevils? I didn't cite this. I'm not responsible for it. So I post a citation discussing the crucial importance of the bond force constants in the water diameter. However, within the very same reference, it goes on about how the bond force constants in the water diameters are created by invisible three-toed gnomes behind the Crab Nebula, throwing pixie dust in a black hole, and how they are the cause for invisible three-toed gnome calcium oxalate stones. That fact, number one, doesn't render or refute, render null, impugn my citation, or have any impact on it whatso friggin' ever. Number two, doesn't denote that I believe that invisible three-toed gnomes exist or have kidney stones. Number three, doesn't obligate me to explain, justify in any way, shape, or form invisible three-toed gnomes, crab nebulas, black holes, or calcium oxalate stones. Number four, shows unequivocally that your clumsy, daft muppet of appeal is a booger-eating retard, incoherent, belly-laughing red herring fallacy from the Black Lagoon, at best. In other words, Mr. Magoo, I'm only responsible for the citation. Duh! Please report 2 weeks early to 5th grade next year. By the mere fact that I had to explain this, demonstrably reveals not only that the booger-eating psychopath Georgie never reviewed scientific literature, ever, but brings into serious question if and how he ever passed high school. And listen, this is not only to Georgie. Listen, folks, if I'm telling you this and you're sitting out there and this is new to you, you have bigger problems than whether the earth is flat or a sphere or not. You need to start over again. Start in 1st grade and come up through. Okay? In summary, if you think this psychopathic booger-eating retard should be allowed to walk amongst us freely, that is not institutionalized immediately, then you should be lobotomized. Thanks for your ear. Have a nice day.
Okay. So
just with Georgie, we got another presentation coming up.
I was going to say, we're going to have a short break. We're going to discuss this subject a little bit more. I'm going to shout out a few super chats, but I'm going to strap on one thing that I doubt you missed it, but by the same token, it, for me, is the purpose of his doing all this, which is in that little clip right at the end. He says, he alludes to it describing the Earth travelling, the atmosphere travelling with the Earth. But he doesn't go to any citation in that book that's specifically about the doublespeak nonsense that is the heliocentric sphere Earth. He doesn't go to a reference. He just says it. So he's poisoning the well. He's using lots of fallacies. He's flying in the face of what the citation actually says as he tries to or attempts to discredit you. But that's the bit that he needs to actually do. While he's going, doesn't he get that this says it's a sphere Earth in this book? What, a book about sphere Earth that we're referencing to show how the sphere Earth says that the Earth should rotate underneath? What a shock, George. Yeah, it does, yeah. Yeah, we're taking from the Book of Magic to point out the magic trick. Yes, that's right. Shock. You think that's some sort of proof and win? But moreover, he needs to insert the fact that he states the Earth and atmosphere travel as one, while he's talking about that book, which he does. So he's just a little magician. That's all he's doing, a little magic trick while he double speaks the subject. So he's saying, look, the book says it's a sphere, and it talks about the Earth and atmosphere, and the vacuum existing next to the Earth atmosphere. It's like, go and reference that in it. Show us where it says that that's possible. Tell us about the second law of thermodynamics described in the magic book that we're referencing, about the magic that we're debunking. Yeah, anyway.
What an abject retard.
Just before I get...
Unbelievable.
I will come to the super chatters after I've got the opinions of the panel first and foremost. So we'll go to Betty first, if she's hopefully on a mic.
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. What I wanted to say was that these people try to go into the reference and cite their own citation, and they think that they're done by doing that, right? So sometimes in that same reference, something else interesting is there, and they say, well, look at this, and then that's their refutation. But they forget to support that claim. It's not just to give a citation, because that's something like quote mining and cherry picking, but you have to support what you're saying. Like one time Gem Panda was in a hangout and he said, well, there are multiple scientific methods. And then the next question was, because he had a citation, and then the next question is, okay, well, so what's your argument? Support it. Say how is it being used? How are these multiple scientific methods being applied then? And he couldn't do that, right? So most people do have citations of their own, but they cannot back it up, or that. Yeah, I don't know how to say that, but it is wrong.
Every citation is a baseless assertion on its face. They must all be practically supported. That's besides the point here. These people don't even know what citations and references are. That's scary, because you need to know this stuff to pass high school. So you're correct about that. That's another add-on point with citations. They think they're good. The ones that do post citations, most people don't even do that. They'll post a paper or something not cited adequately, right? And they'll say, look, it says that, you're wrong. Oh, wait a second. The argument just began. You have to support. As soon as you cite something, you are 100% responsible for that. If the person that's cited in the document hasn't supported it, you must. You must support his claptrap. I don't care who says it. It's just a baseless assertion fallacy initially. Sorry about that.
Paula?
Yeah, pretty much the same thing, where citations that they don't understand. I mean, I've done this for years and years and years on my blog. When it comes to the Bible studies, if I want to cite someone else's or make a rebuttal to someone else's claim, I will use their supporting documents to show that they don't even understand their own documents. And I have to put a disclaimer. Yeah, and I have to put a disclaimer. This does not mean I endorse everything at this site, because there are so many people who would do that on that topic, where they would say, well, you cited this and this person is a Satanist. You know, oh, you cite Satanist. And I'm like, no, you cite Satanist, and I'm calling you out on it. It's just the same thing.
They're morons. If you would walk in university and say this, like you handed in they never handed in a research paper in their life. They've never provided a works cited page or a bibliography.
Sorry, John, you might want to drop and reconnect once more. Your mic's gone all fuzzy. Hopefully we'll get some comments from Adam while you're doing that anyway. So, Adam, we're going to move on to Georgie Musser soon, but hopefully you'll have the last word on George Netanyahu.
I'll come out. I won't analyze his words, but I'll just say, I'll reiterate really what's going off there. You know, the whole level of critique that he's throwing at John there appears to be based in a straw man of his. Like I said, I don't want to get into educating him, but his lack of education, understanding, and lack of comprehension of how we use the words and what the word citation means. His whole attack on John is based in a fallacy of that is totally incorrect. When in the reality is John's using them in the correct terms, the correct way, and again, it shows the level that it's getting to. Not only that, but he's then accusing John of other falsehoods such as restructuring, which I don't see there, and I've never seen anybody actually present any evidence of that. And it's sad, isn't it? It's kind of the reality of the level of rebuttal that's coming now, which is just.
I think
you ticked me off for it in the first part. Just going into it and trying to analyze it, and that second bit is really what's the point? Any sentient person can. Well, you would hope.
I think it's glorious, because what they do, they stamp pretender clown doofus right on their forehead for you, don't they? Because they're ignorant. I mean, if they walked into a university and said this nonsense about citations, they'd be laughed off of campus. The first year freshmen know this. You have to know this stuff to graduate high school. It's a belly laugher. They'll keep doing it too. I just let them go. Like I said, just let them open up their incoherent pie holes. Unbelievable. But keep doing it. Please keep making videos. Thanks.
I'm half tempted to take a few comments from Discord before we move on to George Musser, unless anybody objects.
That's fine. No, not at all.
Okay, so at this point, I'm kind of in Betty's hands, if I'm honest. So hopefully.
Okay, I'm going on mute here.
In this point, Betty's going to jump into the Discord server and take charge of whoever's in there, and hopefully we'll get some questions from the public before we move across to Georgie fucking Musser. And
he's not going to be that long.
You've got to do it properly.
Where in the world is Georgie fucking Musser? We'll move on to George shortly. It's a shame he's being out of respect for him, because I know everybody seems to like the guy, which fair enough, good for him. He's going to get strapped onto the end just like Jaron did. So Jaron covered this, and he did it at the end of a piece that he'd done in lieu of a piece that he was going to do with Ranty, but Ranty got very. I don't know if he's made what happened to him public or not. So, got a bit of feedback. Hello, we've got a guest that wanted to say something. Let's see if we can get some questions. Looks like that's the cue. Hello, guests in Discord. How you doing? Have you opened one of their mics, Betty? A question from
Discord? I'm in Discord too.
Okay, yeah.
But it seems that if I'm in Skype, both in Skype and in Discord, it's makes the sound in Discord stop. So I've unmuted Kosho. Maybe he wants to chime in and on this topic.
Oh God!
Well, whilst you do quickly get that sorted, I'm going to get some wine, especially if Kosho's arriving. So I'll see you in 2 seconds.
Well, this won't take an eternity. So we're not at the end of the show. Normally we take questions at the end of the show, but as I say, out of respect for Musser, he's getting strapped on at the end, and he's had a pummeling already. So I'm happy to take questions at this stage and then do more at the end. So at some stage we'll close down it. But Kosho, if you can hear us, can you hear us first of all?
So I
hear you guys.
Oh, perfect. Did you have a question?
No.
Anybody else in Discord? Thanks, Kosho. That's brilliant. Anybody else?
Yeah, we also have Sean G in there. Maybe he wants to ask a question.
Oh, I can't wait. Put that pretender clown on here. He wouldn't know what the Coriolis
it's not boys in the well. Hold on, John. Right, don't have to shut you up. Go ahead, Sean, if you can hear us.
Yeah, I've unmuted him, but I don't see him talking, so he might be on the mic.
No worries. Pop them back on, and they'll probably drop you a message in Discord if they're running back from their kitchen with a sandwich in their mouth. Maybe someone else in there. We've got a few people in there, so. We might move past the Discord server if there's no questions. Any more for any more? There's definitely a couple more people in there.
Yeah, I've unmuted them all so they can
all
talk.
been unmuted.
Hello.
Hello.
All
There you
been
go.
unmuted.
If you can pop everyone else, but
Can anyone hear me?
yeah, we can hear you, Cork. We're just going to pop everyone else in the server back on mute so we can get your question. Just give us a second. Let us know when everything's ready to go, Betty.
Yeah, so the one guy named Cork was talking, so maybe he has a question.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Cork.
he has.
Yeah, I actually don't have I'm actually a flat earther. I just joined Discord, so they have to change.
No worries. We'll probably have a chat with you in the after show. If there's no questions in this regard, great. You know, I thought John was very concise.
I think the
Also,
Rumpus has also joined. So
okay.
What? Mr. Air is not the atmosphere.
No, that's fine.
yeah,
Let's not poison the well. Have you got a question for us, Rumpus? Can you hear us?
I've unmuted him so he can talk. Maybe he didn't hear, but can you hear us, Rumpus? Might have to figure out how it works if he's new to Discord.
We'll give it another minute or so. I'm happy for there to be a little bit of dead air in this bit because we're dealing with the public in a Discord server and it's not going to be super smooth. So
We also
Good.
have Chocolate saying.
again, we'll find out if there's any
Chocolate.
questions. See, people are starting to pile in now. We might get some questions on the Coriolis effect / George Netanyahu presentation. Dawn, maybe? You want to try Dawn? See if he's got a question.
Yeah, I've unmuted him.
Can you hear us, Dawn?
Oh, John.
I
John
just
said
got
that-
here, so I didn't really hear the Coriolis part of the demonstration, but maybe if you threw in what the main point was about it.
You're having a laugh.
Sure.
Can you pop Kosho on mute? So, no, we're not going to summarise an hour-and-a-half presentation for you because you just got here, Kosho. But if Dawn's got a question, hopefully if he's unmuted. If not, we'll move on to the next presentation.
He's unmuted, but he said that he wanted to listen to it. So
No worries. If there's no actual questions other than from someone that wants to summarise the entire presentation first for them, I'm happy to move on to the next one.
Yeah, Robert Ross wants to talk, but he has the problem with I think with the talking. John, can you talk him through it, maybe? Is it push to talk thing, maybe?
No. Not in the middle of a live show. Just sort your
Okay.
shit out, Rumpus. What's your problem? Anyway,
Okay.
right, let's move on. We've got another presentation, so yeah, 3 hours great, maybe 4 hours, but maybe not longer, and it will drag on that long if we continue with Discord indefinitely. So if you can, pop everybody on mute again. If not, I'll have to mute me in the Discord server just to save me doing it. We will come back to you in the Discord server, hopefully with some questions after what I thought was the much more hotter topic, but it's ended up being at the back end of the show, which is fine, because it has been addressed quite heavily, as I say, by Jeranism last night, I believe. He covered this subject on a show that he was intending to do with Ranty. Hopefully he will also do that show. But it was still very, very good information. I really enjoyed Jaren's show. Not that I don't always enjoy them anyway, but yeah, check out Jeranism and his coverage of Georgie.
Sing it, Nathan.
I could have done it. I'm going to refrain. Right, let's keep it on a
Georgie
serious.
fuck Musser.
Right, get it all out your system. Right, so we'll get it out of our system. Any quotes that you need to throw in, try not to do them during the presentation. This is where we need to, remain calm. We'll get more interjection from the audience and Discord server later, and obviously BALLBUSTERS along the way. But if you're happy, John, I'm just going to start with the first little excerpt. Are you ready to rock and roll with your presentation-y bit?
Yes, but listen, this isn't going to
No,
be
if
that
we go
long,
into
so don't
here
fret. Right? It's not going to be as long as the first presentation. So go ahead, play at 4:38. Stop at 4:57, please.
That's the one. So the main issue that Sleeping Warrior has with this was the phrase you used of Einstein snapping the wand. Now,
Right.
Sleeping Warrior has the impression that this means that Einstein snapped the wand and therefore disregarded everything that Newton ever did.
Okay.
No, Craig, the fat Earth. That's not what he said. So let's start out with what Craig the fat Earth said. So the main issue Sleeping Warrior has with his was the phrase you used of Einstein snapping the wand. Now, Sleeping Warrior has the impression that this means that.
Sorry to interrupt. Sorry to interrupt. Can you screen share again?
Yeah.
Can I just add one thing, John, as well? If you're going to
if it's quick,
plus Craig's name, I thought a nice one. It's a Fight the Fat Girth.
They keep it to the end. It's good. Just
sorry.
Keep it to the end.
Thanks a lot. I could start over. It's not a big deal.
It's all good.
Sorry about that. All right. So Craig, what he said was, so the main issue Sleeping Warrior has with this was the phrase you used of Einstein snapping the wand. Now Sleeping Warrior has the impression that this means that Einstein snapped the wand and therefore disregarded everything that Newton ever did. No, Craig. The fat girth. This is horse shit. Anthony never said this, never made that claim. You need to quote him this part. Disregarded everything that Newton ever did. You just made that shit up, son. Anthony never said anything of the sort. He never mentioned the laws of motion, even though they're demonstrable bunk. Calculus, reflecting telescopes, the color spectrum of light, and the particle nature of light. Just a few things that Newton was responsible for. So, to support your bullshit here, you need to quote these in your next video where Anthony said these, or you're full of shit. You got it. So this clown show retard, wouldn't it have been a good idea to post the entire site or the citation in its entirety and read every stinking word that George Musser wrote, which Anthony read to you better than 20 friggin' times for context, than analysis, instead of your juvenile man boobs half-baked partial winging it, right? I mean, we're talking about science here. We want to be specific. The only thing you said, Einstein snapping the wand. That's it. No, you needed to post the whole thing. We needed to go through each word and the context of that passage or citation. That's what we needed to do. Oh, and by the way, the fat Earth debate, the fat Earth versus exposed chemo. This is what we're dealing with here from this Craig Manboobs guy. Listen to what he said. A hypothesis is an explanation, and in the very next breath, Craig the fat Earth. A hypothesis isn't an explanation. I mean, you can go to this video and listen to him. I mean, this is ridiculous. Do you even know your own name, clown show? Preposterous. So do we want to stop here and talk about, I think we should stop here. This is important, right? About misrepresenting what Anthony said. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's outrageous. It happens all the time, and often it's projected onto us that we're misrepresenting what the Ball Earth rhetoric says, as is the example with George Netanyahu previously. You know, we're claimed to be taking it out of context when it makes it very plain, and they double speak it in the very breaths that they're reading the same sources. And in this instance, it's no different. It's just a taking out of context that Anthony's disavowed everything that one man has said when we're specifically focusing on one element of one thing that is attributed to one man. You know, it's very, very contextual. When we say it, when they say it's just a misrepresentation.
Yeah, I caught this. Like I said, I was going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I started at the beginning, and I heard that, and I said, you're full of shit. Anthony never said anything about any other thing except the gravity part, right?
I thought it was very telling, John, that if that was me interviewing George Musser, I wouldn't have started my question with regards to snapping the wand in two by preloading it and asking a person to qualify what somebody else might have thought I meant from my biased opinion if I had the person that wrote it there.
Exactly.
I've asked the person, could you tell me exactly what you meant by that?
Exactly. Post the citation and go through it. Everyone knows what he did because Anthony had it up on screen and told him 20 friggin' times. Just put the whole thing up there.
What I thought he did was, like I say, he didn't ask George what he meant by it. He asked George, and he gave George Musser something to easily oppose by giving him not Anthony's understanding, but his understanding of what he thinks Anthony means.
He was leading the witness, so to speak.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You led me well.
It really is projecting.
It's a joke.
It's projecting. I mean, it's also what they call majoring on the minors. When you pick out that little statement about snapping the wand and just blow it all out of proportion, that's no better explanation for it than majoring on the minors. Is just focusing on the little details. Like if you happen to misstate something, just either a typo or whatever, and people harp on that and focus on it and do a hit piece on it and threaten you with being exposed on it when it wasn't even anywhere close to a central point in your argument. That's just a typical debate tactic that people use when they don't have a strong position. They'll do that sort of thing.
Betty, anything to add to that, or should we move on?
Yeah, nothing to add. No.
Okay, sir, start at 5 minutes 40 seconds and stop at 5 minutes 59 seconds.
Taught. But even Newton and his contemporaries had a real problem with that law, namely that it described gravity's effects, but it really described how gravity works. And Newton actually in his own life tried to develop, unsuccessfully as it turns out, an understanding of how gravity works.
Yeah, this is a gaggle screw. We're going to go through this with a fine-tooth comb. George Musser, even Newton and his contemporaries had a real problem with that law, namely that it didn't seem to, and then there was a pause. It described gravity's effects, but it really described how gravity works. And Newton actually, in his own life, tried to develop unsuccessfully, as it turns out, an understanding of how gravity works. What on earth? Number one, laws describe the whats and the is's. They never explain anything. That's what makes them laws. Scientific theories, on the other hand, explain the hows and the whys. Number two, he said describe the how, right here. So back to the same point again, Professor, descriptions only deal with the whats and the is's. Explanations only deal with the hows and the whys. Never the twain shall meet. It sounds pedantic, but it's very important here. And number three, this one sent me off the reservation. Number three, that it didn't seem to what? You never answered your own statement. Let's take a listen to this. Even Newton and his contemporaries had a real problem with that law, namely that it didn't seem to, then pause, and then directly in it described gravity's effect. You never say, namely that it didn't seem to what? Number four, how did the law describe how gravity works? But Newton and his contemporaries was unsuccessful at describing how gravity works. This entire section up here, this whole thing right here is a non sequitur, double speaking, contradictory bollocks. This makes no sense whatsoever. I can't get anything out of it. I don't know. Maybe it's me. Go ahead. Let's stop with this. Maybe it's me. Maybe somebody else can get something out of it.
Anybody got any comments on the panel?
Yeah, like what? Again, the doublespeak is it's like a disease, I would say. And I think that he doesn't even know what gravity is, the man himself, and he talks about magic. So magic is not unexplainable, right? So I don't think that he knows what it is.
It described gravity's effects. Go back to that, John. Even that bit, he says, isn't that the wrong way around? I might be wrong, but it described gravity's effects, but really it described how gravity works.
I was waiting for a juxtaposition, but there isn't. I'd listened to it a number of times to make sure I didn't get it, that I got it right.
It described, but really it described. But in the other way around, it actually describes how it describes. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. Stop it, Ad.
No. Right. Listen. It described gravity's effects. That's what laws do. They describe an effect, not describe how gravity works. Laws don't do that. I just told you that. I'm going to show you here in a second. It's going to become painfully clear. However, I'm taking a look at the whole thing at face value. Like I said, I tried to listen to it a number of times. This is what he said. I wrote it that, like I said, I went through it a number of times. This is exactly what he said. So I don't know. This is incoherent nonsense to me.
Betty?
But it really described how gravity works and understanding. But Newton failed to understand how it works. It doesn't make it. I'm sorry, I'm stopping. Sorry.
Your exasperation is well welcomed. So just want to hear if there's any from Paula and
I've
Betty.
hit the George Netanyahu point where I'm going to stop trying to comprehend it, because that's what I did with the first George, and the second George has got me there even quicker. So I'm done.
See?
That must be in the name then, huh?
Georgie fuck Musser.
It's kind of catchy song, isn't it?
got
Paula stepped away. I don't think that she's back yet. So.
Oh, she's okay. Fine. Should we move on?
I just got back, but I'm eating, so.
No problem.
Okay.
We'll move on with the next clip, I think. So we're starting at 6:07, is it?
Yes, start at 6:07, stop at 16:13. So it's a quick turnaround.
And it really fell to Einstein. Einstein's role here was to really fill in that mechanism. He explained.
Is that it?
Yeah. What in the world? Professor, scientific theories never, ever, ever even attempt to mechanize laws. Why? If they did, then they wouldn't be laws anymore. For fuck's sake! Watch. Post the mechanism for entropy, the second law of thermodynamics. In other words, show the theory of the second law of thermodynamics, Georgie. That's what you're saying here. That's exactly what you're saying, actually. Unbelievable, man. By the way, you'd fail 5th grade general science and 2nd grade mathematics. I'm going to stop with this one because this is important.
Yeah, it seems like they want us to make a sort of an ad hoc thing to make it work. It's just like they rolling it out as they go along. I don't know. They need something more, and then they add to it and fill in the gaps. And
but it doesn't.
Yeah, it's wrong.
Adam, Paula, anything?
Yeah, it smells to me like a whitewashing of history. It's a bit like, let me stick a story around the stuff that's happened. Einstein stuff, we all know is completely in opposition. But now we're trying to say, look, no, it's just one consecutive way of learning. It's just an addition. This is what the ball is saying. It just fills in the gaps. It explains why, as opposed to no imaginary force. I think that's what he's kind of saying there. But to me, that's just
it's like
false, like say, whitewashing of history. It's just to make it seem continuous.
It's like saying binary and hexadecimal are the same. It's pseudo-Riemannian 4 space and Euclidean 3 space. How can it just baffles me.
No, guys, listen. You're missing the point here. He said that Einstein's role was to fill in the mechanism. Mechanisms are only part of scientific theories, right? They never ever attempt. He said that his role was to fill in the mechanism that Newton left over. Scientific theories don't deal with laws, with natural laws. None, zero. They're on the opposite ends of the spectrum. My statement here, what he's saying here is essentially it's tantamount to that he has to show the theory of the second law of thermodynamics.
Oh,
that's what he's trying to say
see.
here.
You're saying what he's suggesting is that the scientific validity being given, the mechanisms, and in terms of laws, if you were to describe them in that manner, then they wouldn't be a law.
Yeah.
No, he's attempting to explain a law.
Yeah.
You can't do that. They're married they're worse than married bachelors.
And with laws, you cannot have the scientific method working, right?
Exactly. Yes.
That's what I was going to say. That if it's an observation, a law is an observation, and that's where you start, not where you end.
Yeah, but the mechanism is usually also the cause, right? So you need to know what the mechanism is, and the cause is not being shown anywhere. So what was Einstein's experiment then with gravity?
Well, he was off the reservation to begin with. We're only dealing with George Musser with what he said. Einstein's role was to fill in that mechanism. Mechanism of what? Well, the Newtonian law. That's what he's stating here. But that's horseshit.
But that means that this man doesn't know what he's talking about then.
Exactly. Right. So it's tantamount to what he's actually saying here is that, and I'm going to ask him if I ever talk to him, please show the theory of the second law of thermodynamics, since theories explain laws. I mean, it's moronic. I couldn't believe it when I heard it. I almost fell out of my chair. I don't know. Maybe it's just me.
No.
Go on. Sorry about that.
No. We just missed the point. So yeah, like you say, then you don't put laws through the scientific method. They wouldn't be laws anymore. But that's essentially what he's alluding to, right?
Yeah. Laws are just descriptions of effects. That's all they are. That's what makes them laws and not scientific theories. Duh.
But this man was a writer for a scientific magazine, right? Wasn't it?
I think it was the senior editor for 15 years.
America.
He was up there. I know George for a while.
Shouldn't he know this?
Yeah.
I mean, is that scientific thing also magazine also used for peer review, or is it something like it also?
No, it's not. It's not.
Okay.
It's not a peer review journal, but that's all right. That's not a problem. They have a lot of good stuff in there. They usually summarize peer-reviewed research. That's what their mission is.
Oh, okay. But then he should know something about how to write about it and to see if it's valid or not, right?
You think?
You think?
Yeah, I think that. Yeah, that's why we're here. Should we move on to the next one?
Sure. Please start at 6:21 and stop at 6:38.
One another. Now, literally, it's not a force. So the thing about Newton's laws, you can't take it literally, but Newton himself didn't. Or Newton had various ideas on this, but generally it's thought that Newton did not take his own law that literally, that there is a force reaching from one object out to another.
I don't even know why I have to say anything here. George Musser. Now, literally, it's not a force. The thing is about Newton's law, you can't take it literally. Well, thank you, sir. Should we take it metaphorically? Allegorically? How about bullshittery or other? So we can't. Thanks, Adam. So we can't take equations literally anymore, eh, Georgie? Thanks, priceless. I'll just let this go. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry, John.
What's the next one? We're at 11:43.
I wasn't sat there looking at the screen. I was sat there thinking of a way in which you could take it. So I'll give the best answer to you there. Bullshittery. That's.
Yeah. Should we just move on because this is it? Go ahead.
It's indefensible as a statement, isn't it, in of itself? As if making that statement. Well, Newton himself didn't take it literally. Oh, well, let's move on then, shall we? If Newton, you know what I mean, as if that qualifies it in some way, that we can carry on and accept anything that's said further forward. It's said as if it means you can carry on happily and accept the facts that you're then going to carry on dealing with. But the reality is, well, even the bloke that made this shit up didn't believe it. Well, in any other walk of life, like if you were getting arrested and actually the bloke that gave the first statement, he said, oh, no, actually, the bloke that gave the first statement said it's a load of shit. You'd end it there, wouldn't you?
But you can take it as though it's real.
And think of it, yeah. If you think of it as real, then that allows you to then take that secondary supposition, I suppose.
If we take this bullshit as real, we can bang you up for life. So although it's not real, we can take it as real. That's what you're saying. Should we have the next one? Unless Betty or Paula have got anything to add to that. I mean, I don't know why we're brushing past that. We should stick on this a little bit longer. I mean, this has been quoted to death. Why brush past it so quickly? Paula, Betty, anything to add?
Not really.
Not me, no.
Fair enough. I mean, this. I just write it down if you're at home. Quote it to death.
Yeah.
Not literally, just bullshittery.
Right, I'm going to play the next one out. So we're starting at 11:40 something. Right.
Start at 11:43. Stop at 11:48. That's a quick one.
Of things that really begins to question that picture.
Yeah. I mean, we still don't fully know the complete cause of gravity.
No.
I mean, we understand.
Craig, we still don't fully know the complete cause of gravity. George Musser. Oh, no, not at all. Oh, my word. What the fuck, people? Real, actual scientific theories identify the cause. That's their primary mission in life. Priceless. Again, you'd both fail 5th grade general science. And psst, since you two bozos just admitted there is no cause for fairy tale gravity, then ipso facto, there is no scientific theory of gravity. Ah! Bye-bye, Einstein again. All right, I'm going to stop here for a second.
Yes, please. Let's do. So, we state this quite clearly at the beginning of the debates. There is no scientific evidence of gravity. None. George Musser's, John's just pointed out, and quoted, oh no, not at all, when asked for the cause. Well, science is exclusively interested in elucidating the cause. No cause, no science. So all of you fundies who think you have science for gravity, wrong, as we've been making it plain.
Yeah, but you can think of it as science. You can think of it.
It never gets old.
Yep.
Anybody else? Nobody's as outraged about me. I'm so chuffed. That's a great quote. Thank you, George. Yes, we've been saying it as well. Nice that you back us. So
I thought it was a nicer quote from Craig.
What? So we don't know the cause then?
Well, he's kind of admitting himself then that for whatever he states about gravity, he doesn't even know the cause. So if you don't really know the cause of your fundamental belief, it's not very based in a good foundation, is it?
Radius Dominus Gravitus Spiritus Sanctus. Go in peace, in G you trust.
Orwin.
We move on. Last but not least, I think there's only one more quote. Where does this one start?
This is the last one, and I saved it for you guys because you guys love it. So let's finish it on up. Let's start at 1618, stop at 1623. It's a quick turnaround.
Having you...
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Maybe that's...
Gravity's not a force, but you can think of it as a force. This quote that's never gonna get old, George. Never. It's a gem. It's a little gem.
It was the one I repeated 4 or 5 times at the end of the little sound bite that I took from that video. It was that 3 minutes before, and I just felt the need to just keep repeating that because, you know, it isn't a force, but you can think of it as a force.
It's a pseudo force.
A non-force. A fictitious force.
It's
Not
a
a
non-force
force.
force.
Not a force?
It's a non-force force.
Yeah, it's not a force, just a fundamentalist belief.
A force is a force, of course.
No one.
Unless
We're well into double digits.
This isn't gonna go away.
No, definitely not. I was going to say 4 or 5 times, Adam, we're well into double digits in terms of hijacking this on the debate. Oh, brilliant. Just the amount of formulation you can make with that statement is just endless. It never gets old.
Unless, of course, that horse, of course, is the famous Mr. G.
At least somebody's old enough to remember that show.
Yes.
Right, just for prosperity. Just hold on. Just for prosperity, we're gonna have it one more time.
Yeah,
That's fair.
having you.
Gravity is not a force, but you can think of it as a force. Maybe that's the best.
Never
best
gets old.
explanation.
Right.
Did you say that it is the best explanation of gravity?
It'll do.
Listen. I don't want to punk George Musser out all that much. It is what it is.
I know.
He said what he said.
You got terrible mic again, John. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out some super chats while you drop and rejoin because your mic's gone terrible. Let me know in the chat if it's everybody. I'll reset my desk just in case it is my end. It might be me, but I don't think so. Okie dokie. So let's do some shout outs to some super chatters and then we'll round out this point and go to the Discord server. So I'll just get my composure. Right, shout out to Unicorn Laser Eye, says, hello everyone, I love these shows. Rob Kiln, Earth is obviously and observably flat. Slightly longer one, let's move my mic and get a bit closer to the screen. Rebel, thank you very much for the $20 super chat, Rebel. Great job, you guys. Let's get to brass tacks. At some point, it'll be great if QE or Nathan could smash the ludicrous idea of slingshotting of space vehicles around the planet. Does so-called gravity simply let go? Lol. Well, it begs the question in 2 regards. So it begs the question that you've got a globe Earth, and it begs the question that you've got spherical orbits to begin with, and then the slingshotting aspect is presumably the narrative that you're punting for getting to the moon that they allege they use. Yeah, it's all nonsense. I mean, it all begs the question, but
wouldn't that slingshotting be in a violation of the second law?
Yeah, it starts and ends with the space bit is totally fake. So before you even get to the spherical Earth being in that medium that you're describing them slingshotting in, that's a Narnia description. So how does the gas lamp work in Narnia? Does the snow settle because of the time dilation in Narnia?
Yeah,
Narnia's
but
not
Nathan,
real.
right? If you throw something really fast at an angle into the wardrobe, it will come out the other end doing at least 16,000 miles an hour.
Precisely. So we could argue all day about the time dilation in Narnia, right? And whether or not it would or wouldn't work based on the physics of Narnia. However, Narnia's not real, and neither is space. It violates the second law of thermodynamics. The gas we breathe would fill the space. So if you ever get into these arguments where you have to beg the question of space, vacuum, and you have to beg the question of a sphere Earth, and you have to beg the question of orbits, then you're 3 steps into a begging the question fallacy that can be cut off at the knees by saying, how do we have gas pressure without a container? Your alleged sky is a vacuum, and we breathe gas pressure. So the gas pressure must have the necessary antecedent of a container, instantly debunking the notion of a vacuum of the sky, otherwise known as outer space. That's where I'd cut the legs off that argument before trying to unpick the begging the question fallacy of sphere Earth and orbits and slingshots that are based on that in a vacuum, because that bit's the bit I'd attack. But there we go. Anybody else got anything to add to that? And then I'll move on to the next super chat. Thank you for the super chat, by the way, Rebel. Really appreciate it.
Is my mic working okay?
Perfect. That's another hint for me to give another shout out to Unicorn Laser Eyes for double hitting the super chat. Hit the thumbs up and super chat, everyone. Yeah, I totally echo that sentiment. Yes, should be loud and clear. Chow Yun Fat, thank you very much. Great panel and show, Nathan. Really good stuff. Test all things. Hold fast to what is good.
Amen.
Rob Khan, thank you, Nathan. Thank you for the super chat, Rob. Again, thanks to Unicorn Laser Eyes. He's been smashing the super chat quite a lot, he or she. Way BMX, also a big shout out to you for hitting the super chat. Gravity is not a force, in quotes, George Musser. Indeed. Yuya also puts a lollipop up. Not quite sure what that's referencing, but thank you very much indeed, Yuya, for the super chat. Really appreciate your support. Smash the super chat if you want to support this channel. Thank you to all who have done so already. Unless any of the ballbusters have got anything to add, I think this could be another opportunity to go to the Discord server.
Just one thing, Nathan. That last one with regards to the quote George Musser. When I put up the thumbnail for our YouTube video, I was thinking what to stick on, and I put George Musser, and then I thought, and then what popped into my head was Wiggles 2019, so I did turn it into George Musser 2019 was the. So I think it's always important to quote the year that these doofuses state these things that will contradict their fundamental religious beliefs.
Absolutely. You know, without the balloon there can be no pressure. Conspiracy Cats 2018.
Class.
Without the container, there can be no pressure. Conspiracy Cats 2019. Right, Betty, are you ready to rock and roll? I'm sure we've got a lot of questions, hopefully.
Rock and roll. Yeah. Many on deaf mute also, but I will try to get Rumpus unmuted now, so hopefully I can talk now. So let's see what he does.
I'm unmuted.
You are. Can you hear
I would
us
appear
okay?
to be unmuted.
Right, go ahead, Rumpus.
Yes, I can hear
Mic's
you.
all yours.
I like it. Yes, I mean,
Good
your
evening,
stupidity
Rumpus.
is just extraordinary. I don't know. You've missed out. You seem to have missed out on basic education you should have had when you were about 13 or 14. And because you haven't had that education, you're able to let your imagination run riot and just imagine what you like, driven by your wishful thinking. I mean, it's just extraordinary.
It's not the
QE, I mean,
atmosphere.
it's just so stupid. It's incredible. I mean, he doesn't understand. You still be utterly confused by what Musser said, which he made several quotes where he demonstrated it manifests itself as a force, and he even talks about calculating the force using Newton's equations. He accepts that the space-time, curvature of space-time manifests itself as a force in our reality. It's very, very simple, but it doesn't behave like other forces, like the electrostatic force. The source of the force is different, but it manifests itself just like any other force. It's the force you see when you stand on some scales, and which scales are a force meter, and the value that it shows you is the force of gravity, your weight. Your weight is a force. That's exactly what it is, and that's what your scales measure. They measure the force of gravity, and they are a force meter, so they're measuring a force on your floor, your weight, and that force is what we call your weight, and it's caused by the attraction, as demonstrated by Cavendish, that mass attracts mass. It's really very easy.
Is that the end? I'll take that as yes. Okay. Gravity is not a force. George Musser, 2019.
But you can think of it as a force.
You can think of it as a force. Now, in the same way, because according to the Ball Earth rhetoric, the Earth turns underneath the atmosphere, a plane will travel in a straight line. It's not being pushed or pulled by the Coriolis force. It's travelling in a straight line. And according to the Ball Earth nonsense rhetoric that would have that plane with a continent travelling towards it, hurtling unbelievable speeds, according to that nonsense, you as the observer observe the plane taking a curved path. Now, it's not actually curving. It's an apparent deviation because it's a not actual force. Nothing's forcing the plane to curve because it's not curving. There is a non-force. An apparent force, meaning there isn't actually a force. And in the same way, George Musser makes it quite plain. Gravity is not a force. Now, you can think of it as a force if you're a funny fuckwit. But you can do a lot of things. Now, Anthony made the example with mantids. He said, you're not a paedophile, but we can think of you as a paedophile. Is that acceptable? Now, obviously not. If you're not a paedophile, you don't want people thinking of you as a paedophile, because you're not. Now, if you want to call that being an apparent paedophile, that's up to you, dick brains. But if you're not, you're not. A non-force is not a force. So let's just pop Rumpus. Praise be to our Rumpus. Excellent preaching, my friend. You did extremely well. Let's see if there's anybody else in the Discord server that has anything else to add or ask, hopefully. Who's next?
Yeah, another beautiful one. Kosho, maybe?
Hey, Kosho, can you hear us?
Also, Chocolate Saiyan is in here.
When we get to the after show, we'll open them all up. But in the meantime, while we're in the live show, just one at a time if we can. Kosho, can you hear us?
I don't know if you can hear me.
We can hear you, yeah.
Yeah, I'm afraid to add anything because I know it's just going to get distorted. But I think what Rumpus was describing is the same way I understood that George interview. He was explaining it the same way we've always tried explaining it to you guys, which is that it's an apparent force, or not a fictitious, but a inertial force, meaning that it's existing because of the effect of the reference frame, not because of like a physical effect, but because of the law, the second law of motion, describing and defining what a force is. It behaves. It fits the description for that. It's making a mass accelerate. And so it can be calculated as a force. So I don't see what the confusion is.
I've got a question. If it's making something accelerate, that would make it a force, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, it's not a force. Let's just make that plain. Maybe give you a quote. Can someone else quote George Musser, the
I know this bloke.
astrophysicist?
He's a famous physicist. There's George Musser, and he says it's not a force. 2019, George Musser.
You can think of it as a force.
You can think of it as a force. That's correct. But
that's right. Kosho,
it's not a force.
You're not a bank robber, but we can think of you as a bank robber. How's that? Does that sound perfectly acceptable that we all think of you as a bank robber even though you're not a bank robber? Because it's not a force, sunshine. What part of this aren't you getting?
Well, aren't they doing this?
Like I said, it's something I've understood, and so has the physics world has understood for 100 years. And like I said, if you check out the equivalence principle,
understood
which has
what?
been out for like
Sorry,
100 years.
Just before you go on, understood what? What is it the physics world have understood? Enlighten us.
That this effect of gravity is actually because of the curvature of space-time, which makes it not a force in which it's a physical effect of something else, but because it behaves as a force, it can be described as a force and used to calculate all sorts of measurements and things like that.
So you're saying you can write down and describe it as something even though it's not actually that thing? Well, that sounds like a kind of fundamentalist religious zealot way of looking at things, doesn't it, Kosho?
Yeah, I suppose, unless you understand the equivalence principle.
Equivalence principle? What? When something's not a force, calling it a force, that's called doublespeak, not the equivalence principle, my son. Yeah. I don't think we need to hear any more doublespeak from Kosho. Not a force, but is a force is kind of the thing we're laughing at, Kosho. But you keep it up, my friend. It's pop Kosho back on mute. We'll see if anybody else in the panel has got anything to doublespeak us with. Hopefully. Who else we got? I can't read that. Elebacrua. I can't say that.
She's I think is that a flat earther? Yeah, Lisa.
Hey, okay. How you doing?
How you doing? Did you have something to add about about this?
Oh, I'm just laughing about how they call a pseudo force real. You know, it's hilarious. It's a pseudo, what's the definition of pseudo? Not genuine,
false.
spurs, or sham?
Yes. false. Pseudo's false.
It's like when you're in a car.
But no, they
You're
want to
going
say
straight.
no. It is a force, but it's not a force.
Well, see,
This
if
is
you're
hilarious.
an actual pseudo force would be like if you're in a car going straight and you take a sudden turn. If you turn to the left suddenly and the passenger is just going to be thrown against the door, that's because the passenger is trying to go straight because you're not attached to the car, and the car is trying to divert you. That's a pseudo force, but you can explain it because the car has turned and you're trying to go in a straight line. There's no such explanation for gravity, though. And time is immaterial. It's a concept only, a perception. And so how can it be bent and how can it explain the force of gravity? That's
Excellent.
what doesn't make sense.
Perfect. John, Quantum Eraser, can you tell us the mathematical construct that space-time is described as, please? There? Has he dropped? Pseudo-Riemannian for space. Length, breadth, depth, and time. So when they say they're bending space-time, try to realise they're bending a concept they have on paper, not something that you can touch, or experiment with, or experience in any way, shape or form. Merely an idea that they've put down on paper and then tell you that it works when they mathematically calculate that idea they have on paper and have conjured from thin air. So we're not dealing with the actual bending of space-time. What the hell is space-time?
Nathan, does that mean there's not some bloke in a lab that's got like a bit of space-time and he's like bent it and they've observed it?
No, what they do is they use the equivalence principle and drag out a fucking sheet.
Hey, sorry, man. I took a little break. I just got back. Somebody told me that you asked me something.
Yeah, the mathematics used for Einstein's replacement, let's make the terminology correct, for Euclidean 3 space.
You're talking about the comparison like Einstein's field equations to Newtonian?
Well, you've got Euclidean 3 space, and then what did Einstein use? Pseudo what?
Pseudo-Riemannian 4 space. They're in completely different geometries.
Right, the guy on the Discord server was saying, what are they saying? It's a pseudo force. What, a non-force? A fake force? It's like, right, yeah, a fake force in a fake medium based on pseudo-Riemannian 4 space, length, breadth, depth, and time.
I'm going to defend George Musser there. He didn't qualify it like that. He just made quite a clear statement. He didn't give it a secondary subcategory, which is, you know, an effect force of other things. It's just a perceived. He just made a quite concise statement. It's not a force.
I know.
But you can think of it as a force.
Have we got any other ballers on the panel, Betty? Because with these chuckles,
I don't think so. No, I think it's the Rumpus and Kosho at the moment, and everybody else is, I think, are flat earthers.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
I mean, what we'll do is we'll get some closing remarks on these two George clowns, and then we'll round out the live show. Thank everyone for joining. See if there's any more super chats, and then if not, we'll carry on the conversation with the rest of the Discord server in the after show.
Okay.
So, any closing remarks from the Ballbusters? Don't all go at once.
Yeah, a lot of double speak in this with these two Georges, right? But it's everywhere. It's all over the baller side that they have to double speak and double think. So that's what I've seen.
Paula, Adam, anything to add to close out this Ballbusters live show?
Nothing now.
We've had a good laugh at the double speak. Adam?
I think it's been adequately highlighted this evening. You know what I mean? It's great. And kudos to Anthony Riley. I said it on our show last night, and shout outs to him again. You know, him having the balls to stand there behind his commitments and double down on this stuff with Fight the Fat Earth. He's yielded this great quote, which has, particularly from a baller's perspective, fantastic credibility behind it, and it's going to be interesting. We just saw heard the Rumpus's response. Don't know what it was, but it's going to be very interesting how they deal with this and how they try to double speak and rhetoric away from the clear and obvious fact that gravity is not a force. But you can think of it as a force, if you want. If you want to, go on then.
We're going to discuss it a lot more, Adam. Like I say, it never gets old. We'll put a load more examples into that subcontext. Right, John, you can have the last remarks, and then we'll close out the live show.
Yes, well, as we've seen, these people are it's totally bereft of any science acumen. I'm talking about just basic fundamental science acumen or basic reasoning. It's actually quite scary if you think about it. We're in the middle of just willfully blind, fanatical religious zealotry that's going under the name of science and intellectualism. This is a joke, folks. It's that simple. If you can't see it, I'm sorry. Seek medical attention immediately. Thanks.
And with that, I'll say a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you in the live audience for tuning in, smashing the super chat, liking, commenting. Hopefully you'll spread this show far and wide. Of course, a massive thank you to all of the ballbusters. So that's Adam, Quantum Eraser, Betty and Paula for making this live show possible. And last but by no means least, all of the Discord server for making this interactive part of the show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley. Be sure to check out nathanoakley.com and the Flat Earth Debate Forum to keep up to date with the community debate. And I'll see you all in the next Ballbusters.